Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me closely, because what I'm about to share with you has the power to turn the very thing that tried to break you into the thing that builds you. Here's the truth most people never hear. You are not defined by what knocked you down. You are defined by what you decide to do once you're on the ground. And today, I want to show you the mindset that turns setbacks into comebacks. Because the difference between the people who rise and the people who stay stuck is not talent, it's not money, it's not timing, it's mindset. Now here's your hook. Every setback carries the seed of a comeback, but only if you plant it. See, the problem isn't that you failed. The problem is you believed failure had the final say. But failure is not a dead end. It is a detour. A detour is not a denial, and denial is not destiny. Setbacks are simply feedback from the universe, from God, from the process, telling you this is not the end. This is the beginning of something bigger. Let me teach you what winners understand. Winners don't ask, why did this happen to me? Winners ask, what is this trying to teach me? That question changes everything, because when you change the meaning of the setback, you change your movement after it. And when you change your movement, you change your momentum. And when you change your momentum, you change your future. The comeback mindset is built on this truth. You are not waiting for the comeback. You are becoming the comeback. You've got to stop thinking setbacks disqualify you. Some of you think because you failed, you're finished. But hear me, failure didn't disqualify you. It prepared you. It prepared your character. It prepared your discipline. It prepared your resilience. And resilience is the currency of champions. What you call a setback, God calls a setup. What looked like a breakdown was actually groundwork for a breakthrough. You don't need a perfect path. You need a persistent spirit. Because the person who refuses to quit is the person who eventually wins. And here's another hook. You can't control the hit, but you can control the bounce. Life will hit you. Business will hit you. Relationships will hit you. Your past will hit you. But the rebound, that's yours. Winners bounce back higher than they fell, because the fall is only fatal if you stay down. The comeback mindset says, if I'm still breathing, I'm still building. If I'm still standing, I'm still rising. And if I'm still trying, I'm still winning. Every setback carries the seed of a comeback. But most people never discover that seed because they're too focused on the pain to notice the potential. The truth is, every difficulty you face contains an opportunity wrapped inside it. An opportunity to grow, to evolve, to stretch your capacity, and to become the version of yourself capable of achieving what you once thought was impossible. The moment you shift your perspective from, why is this happening to me, to what is this preparing me for, you begin to unlock a level of power that average people never tap into. Here's the hook. Setbacks are not roadblocks. They are raw materials for your next breakthrough. Think about it. Every champion you admire has a story of a moment when everything seemed to fall apart. What separates them from the crowd is not that they avoided hardship, but that they recognized the value hidden inside it. A setback is simply a situation that didn't match your expectations, and yet it is precisely those situations that force you to rethink, refine, and rebuild. Setbacks reveal weaknesses that stayed hidden when things were easy. They push you to develop skills you never needed before. They stretch you in ways comfort never will. And the people who rise to greatness are the ones who understand that the pain of a setback is temporary, but the growth it produces is permanent. Here's another hook. What feels like a breakdown is often the starting point of your breakthrough. Sometimes life has to shake your foundation to show you where the cracks are. Sometimes God removes something not to punish you, but to position you. Sometimes losing what you thought you needed is the only way to discover what you truly carry inside. When you begin to see setbacks as setups, your confidence stops depending on circumstances. Your mindset becomes anchored in possibility instead of fear. This is where your comeback begins. The seed of a comeback is often planted in the soil of frustration. It's planted when the business deal falls apart. It's planted when the relationship that you thought would last forever dissolves. It's planted when you lose the job you counted on. But just like real seeds, this one doesn't grow in the light. It grows in the dark. In the seasons where you feel buried instead of planted. Yet being buried and being planted feel the same at first. The difference is your mindset. When you're buried, you believe it's over. When you're planted, you understand something powerful is about to emerge. Here's a hook to keep you leaning in. The comeback seed inside your setback becomes active the moment you decide to stop shrinking and start growing. The moment you say, I will not die in this chapter, I will rise in the next one, you activate strength you didn't know you possessed. The comeback mindset is not about ignoring difficulty. It's about using difficulty as fuel. It's about turning disappointment into determination, rejection into redirection, and pressure into power. What most people don't realize is that every setback contains information about what needs to be improved, what needs to be released, and what needs to be rebuilt. If you study your setback, it will teach you far more than your successes ever could. Success comforts you, but setbacks shape you. They give you clarity, humility, resilience, and resolve. They teach you how to stand stronger, work smarter, and move with intentional purpose. The people who come back stronger aren't the ones with the easiest lives. They're the ones who learn how to extract wisdom from every fall. They understand that setbacks are not signals to stop. They are invitations to rise. And when you rise with the knowledge your setback gave you, your comeback becomes not just possible, but inevitable. You don't just return to where you were. You return stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the life you're meant to build. You are not defined by the fall. You are defined by the bounce. Every person on this planet experiences seasons where life hits harder than expected, where a plan collapses, a relationship breaks, a goal slips through your fingers, or circumstances turn against you with no warning. But the truth that separates the resilient from the defeated is this: the fall is not your identity, it is merely your circumstance. What truly shapes your future is how you respond once you hit the ground. Here's the hook: the impact is inevitable, but the comeback is intentional. Falling doesn't make you weak. Staying down does. The most powerful people you admire, the leaders, the innovators, the entrepreneurs, the visionaries, they all share a common trait. They mastered the art of bouncing back. The world often celebrates their success, but overlooks the many moments when they stumbled, doubted themselves, or faced setbacks that could have destroyed their confidence. What distinguished them wasn't immunity to failure. It was their refusal to let the fall define their story. They understood that the bounce is where strength is built, character is tested, and destiny is shaped. When life knocks you down, the bounce begins in your mind long before it happens in your actions. The moment you decide that the fall is not final, you activate a new level of resilience inside you. Most people don't realize this, but your internal dialogue is the fuel for your recovery. If you tell yourself the fall means you're unworthy, incapable, or finished, you rob yourself of the energy needed to rise again. But when you say, this fall is not my ending, this is my repositioning, you ignite a fire that no setback can extinguish. Here's the hook: your bounce back begins the moment you start believing you're not meant to stay down. The bounce is a conscious choice. It is the decision to rise even when your strength feels depleted. It is the decision to believe in your value even when circumstances try to convince you otherwise. It is the decision to keep moving, even if that movement feels slow, shaky, or uncertain. Because momentum is built one step at a time, and motion, any motion, is a victory after a fall. The greatest mistake people make is thinking they must bounce back perfectly. But the truth is, the bounce doesn't have to be beautiful. It just has to happen. In the moments after a fall, emotion runs high: frustration, embarrassment, disappointment, even fear. But here's another hook to hold on to: your emotions may describe the fall, but they do not decide the bounce. You get to choose what happens next. You get to choose whether you rise or remain. You get to choose whether you learn or quit. The power has always been in your hands. Even when the fall made you feel powerless, the bounce is also where clarity emerges. Falling exposes what wasn't working: your habits, your strategy, your circle, your priorities, your mindset. Sometimes the fall is the only thing strong enough to break the patterns that were holding you back. Sometimes you have to be forced lower so you can rebuild higher. And when you begin to bounce back, you don't bounce back as the same person. You bounce back wiser, sharper, more aware, and more committed to your purpose. People who bounce understand that the fall is temporary, but the person they become through the bounce is permanent. They know that resilience isn't built in a smooth life, it's built in a storm. They rise not because the situation is easy, but because staying down is no longer an option they are willing to accept. Their bounce becomes a statement to themselves and to the world. I'm stronger than what tried to stop me. You are not defined by what brought you to your knees. You are defined by the strength, the decision, and the courage you summoned to stand up again. Your bounce is your power, and the moment you choose to rise, you rewrite your entire story, change the meaning, and you change the momentum. Most people don't realize how much power they give away simply by interpreting a challenge the wrong way. The event itself is rarely what stops a person. It's the meaning they attach to it. Two people can experience the same setback. One sees a dead end, the other sees a detour. One sees evidence of failure, the other sees evidence of growth. One gives up, the other gets better. The difference was never the situation. It was the story they told themselves about the situation. Here's the hook. Your life doesn't move in the direction of your circumstances. It moves in the direction of your interpretation. Meaning is the invisible engine behind every decision you make. When something goes wrong, when a plan falls apart, when timing feels off, the meaning you assign becomes either the weight that drags you or the wind that lifts you. People who struggle often create meanings that weaken them. This always happens to me. I'm not good enough. Nothing I do works. I should have known better. Those meanings don't just describe the situation, they imprison the mind. And once the mind is trapped, momentum dies. But here's the transformative truth. You are the author of the meaning, and therefore the architect of the momentum. When you decide that a setback means you're being strengthened, you stand taller. When you decide that a delay means something better is being prepared for you, you gain patience. When you decide that the challenge means you're leveling up, you lean in instead of backing out. The moment you shift the meaning, the experience begins to work for you instead of against you. Momentum is a product of belief. Belief is shaped by meaning. Change the meaning, and you ignite a completely different emotional response. That emotional response fuels new behaviors, new decisions, new levels of consistency. And that is where momentum comes from. Momentum is not luck and it's not random. It is the natural byproduct of a meaning that empowers rather than paralyzes. Another hook for you, what feels heavy becomes lighter the moment you give it a purpose. When the meaning changes, your energy changes. If you believe the situation is unfair, you'll resist it. If you believe it's preparing you, you'll embrace it. If you believe it's the end, you'll stop trying. If you believe it's the beginning of something greater, you'll push through. The meaning shapes the mood. The mood shapes the movement. The movement creates the momentum. It all traces back to the story you chose to tell. People who rise after adversity have one thing in common. They have trained themselves to look for the lesson faster than they look for the complaint. They ask better questions. Instead of why me, they ask what now. Instead of what did I lose, they ask what am I gaining. Instead of why is this happening, they ask who is this helping me become. Here's a powerful hook. The questions you ask determine the quality of the meanings you create, and the meanings you create determine the speed of your comeback. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in life come from moments that didn't go the way you wanted. But if you interpret those moments as punishment, you shrink. If you interpret them as preparation, you expand. And expansion is what builds momentum. When you choose empowering meanings, you rise with clarity instead of confusion, strength instead of fear, and determination instead of doubt. Momentum is simply the result of a mind that refuses to let meaning become a prison. The moment you take control of the narrative, you take control of the direction. You become unstoppable, not because everything works out perfectly, but because you have learned how to turn every experience, good or bad, into fuel. That is the power of shifting meaning. That is how you create unstoppable momentum. Failure is feedback, not a finale. This is one of the most transformative truths a person can embrace. Yet it's the one most people avoid because they've been conditioned to treat failure like a permanent label instead of a temporary moment. The reality is that failure is nothing more than information. Information about what needs refinement, what needs improvement, and what needs to be approached differently next time. It is the universe's way of saying, you're close, but not quite there yet. Here's the hook. Failure doesn't close doors. It points you toward the right one. Most people let failure define their identity instead of inform their strategy. They interpret a single setback as a judgment on their potential. They treat one closed door like it means every door will be closed. But successful people, those who build real comebacks, see failure through a different lens. They understand that failure is a necessary part of mastery, a built-in element of growth, a signal that they are stretching beyond comfort and into capability. They don't get discouraged by the feedback, they get curious. They don't quit at the first sign of resistance, they investigate it. They use failure not as a reason to retreat, but as a reason to evolve. The people who stay stuck are the ones who think failure is final. They allow embarrassment, disappointment, or frustration to freeze their momentum. They forget that every skill has a learning curve. Every business has setbacks, and every dream requires adjustments. But the ones who rise are the ones who treat failure like data, nothing more, nothing less. When you start seeing failure as feedback, you remove the emotional sting that keeps you from moving forward. You gain clarity, objectivity, and direction. Another hook. Failure is the teacher that shows up when success refuses to speak. Every time you fail, you are being shown something vital, something you couldn't learn through winning alone. Winning makes you confident, failure makes you wise. Winning celebrates what you already know. Failure reveals what you still need to learn. Winning can inflate your ego. Failure strengthens your humility. And humility is a superpower because it positions you to grow without resistance. When you understand that failure is feedback, you stop avoiding it and you start leveraging it. Failure exposes limitations, not to shame you, but to shape you. It shows you where your strategy is weak, where your discipline needs work, where your focus has slipped, or where your approach needs refinement. This is how champions are built. They study their mistakes with the same intensity others study their wins. They ask themselves, what didn't work? Why didn't it work? What needs to change? How can I adjust? These questions transform failure into momentum instead of misery. Here's another hook. Failure doesn't break you. It builds the blueprint for your next breakthrough. The people who create strong comebacks understand that failure is temporary unless you make it permanent. They know that one failed attempt doesn't mean they're unqualified. It simply means they're unpolished. And polishing takes repetition. Growth takes repetition. Mastery takes repetition. Nothing great is built with flawless attempts. Everything great is built with relentless adjustments. Failure is the signal that you are in the process of becoming who you are meant to be. When you shift your perspective this way, fear loses its power. You stop dreading failure because you recognize its function. Instead of being terrified of failing, you become terrified of not learning. Instead of hiding from challenges, you embrace them. Instead of shrinking from uncertainty, you step into it with intention. You begin to understand that failure is not a setback. It is a setup for the next level of your life. Failure is feedback, it's information, it's instruction. And when you use that feedback with purpose, you rise faster, stronger, and smarter than you ever have before. Persistence beats perfection every time, because perfection is an illusion that keeps people stuck, while persistence is the engine that moves people forward. Too many individuals wait for the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, or the perfect version of themselves before they take action. But success doesn't come to those who wait for everything to align. It comes to those who start where they are, with what they have, and refuse to stop. Here's the hook: perfection delays destiny, but persistence delivers it. When you look at the people who have achieved extraordinary things, you will notice something powerful. None of them were perfect. Their plans weren't perfect, their timing wasn't perfect, and their conditions definitely weren't perfect. What they did have was an unwavering commitment to keep pushing, keep learning, and keep improving. Perfection makes you hesitate. Persistence makes you grow. Perfection makes you question yourself. Persistence forces you to discover yourself. Perfection wants every answer before you begin. Persistence creates answers through action. Most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they stop halfway. They give up at the first sign of resistance because they believe their effort must be flawless to matter. They compare their messy beginnings to someone else's polished success, forgetting that every expert was once an amateur who refused to quit. Persistence is not glamorous at first. It looks like repetition. It feels like struggle. It demands patience when results are invisible. But every step forward, no matter how small, compounds over time. Another hook: small, consistent steps will outrun big, occasional efforts every single time. Perfection is rooted in fear, fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of falling short. But persistence is rooted in purpose. It says, even if I fall, I will rise. Even if I fail, I will learn. Even if progress is slow, I will keep moving. When you embrace persistence, you shift from wanting immediate validation to pursuing long-term transformation. You stop worrying about looking good and start focusing on becoming great. You stop chasing applause and start chasing mastery. Persistence turns obstacles into opportunities because it refuses to let challenges have the final word. When something doesn't work the first time, perfection says, see, this proves I'm not ready. But persistence says, try again, adjust, adapt, improve. Persistence is flexible. It doesn't break under pressure. It bends, recalibrates, and strengthens. It understands that progress is not linear. It's messy, unpredictable, and filled with lessons that perfection would never allow you to learn. And those lessons become the foundation of your comeback story. There is a rhythm to persistence that perfection can't match. Perfection demands clarity before you start. Persistence builds clarity as you move. Perfection wants certainty. Persistence thrives in uncertainty. Perfection wants everything to be in place. Persistence creates the pieces along the way. The people who win in life are the ones who show up when they don't feel ready, who take action before they have confidence, and who keep going long after motivation fades. Here's another hook. Consistency will take you places talent can't. Persistence is also the great equalizer. You may not be the smartest, the fastest, or the most talented person in the room, but if you are the one who stays committed, you become unstoppable. Talent gives you a head start, but persistence determines who finishes. Persistence transforms potential into power because it chisels away excuses and builds discipline. It strengthens your mindset and sharpens your character. Over time, persistence makes you someone who can handle success once it arrives because you earned it, fought for it, and grew into it. When you choose persistence over perfection, you give yourself permission to evolve. You allow yourself to embrace the journey, not just the outcome. You begin to value progress more than appearance, consistency more than convenience, and resilience more than reputation. And that shift becomes the force that carries you through every setback, every challenge, and every moment of doubt. Perfection might impress people for a moment, but persistence inspires them for a lifetime. And when you commit to showing up, improving, and pushing forward, no matter what, you unlock the kind of success that perfection could never deliver. Your comeback starts the moment you decide it does, because nothing in your life shifts until you shift your mind first. People often wait for the right moment, the right inspiration, the right confirmation, or the right conditions before they rise again. But comebacks don't operate on calendars, circumstances, or convenience. They begin with a single decision, an internal declaration that says, I'm done settling, I'm done shrinking, I'm done letting this chapter define me. Here's the hook, your circumstances don't start your comeback, your decision does. We live in a world where many individuals underestimate the power of a moment. Not a year, not a month, not a perfect plan, just a moment. A moment of clarity where you decide you're tired of repeating the same patterns. A moment of courage where you choose growth over comfort. A moment of accountability where you stop blaming and start building. That moment becomes the ignition switch for everything that happens next. The decision creates the direction, and the direction creates the destiny. Most people delay their comeback not because they don't have the ability, but because they believe they need permission. They wait for someone to validate their worth, approve their potential, or guarantee their success. But here's the truth. Professionals and achievers, understand nobody is coming to rescue you because you are fully capable of rescuing yourself. The moment you recognize your own power is the moment your comeback begins to rise from within. A comeback isn't a dramatic scene where everything suddenly falls into place. It's a gradual transformation sparked by a single choice. The choice to try again, the choice to believe again, the choice to rebuild with more wisdom and strength than before. Once you make that choice, the universe starts rearranging pieces. Opportunities start revealing themselves, and your mindset begins to sharpen. You don't need a perfect path to come back. You just need a determined spirit. The most successful comebacks in history didn't happen when everything was going right. They happened in the middle of storms, setbacks, fears, and failures. But what made them possible was a person who decided that the story wasn't over. When you make that decision, you step into a completely different version of yourself. You shift from victim to victor, from reactive to proactive, from defeated to determined. Here's another hook. The comeback version of you already exists. You just have to choose to become them. Every comeback begins with responsibility. Not blame, not shame, not guilt, responsibility. This is the moment when you look at your life honestly and say, if it's going to change, it starts with me. Responsibility is empowering because it puts the pen back in your hand. You stop waiting for luck. You stop waiting for people to change. You stop waiting for the past to fix itself. You take ownership of your next chapter, and ownership unlocks your strength. When you decide that today, not tomorrow, is the beginning of your comeback, something shifts inside you. You begin to evaluate your habits, your environment, your mindset, your relationships, and your priorities. You become intentional instead of accidental. You start replacing excuses with execution, avoidance with action, and fear with focus. And that is the exact moment momentum begins to build. The comeback mindset isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about refusing to let what happened become the ceiling of your future. You stand taller because you stood in the valley. You become wiser because you felt the weight of your choices. You grow stronger because you've survived what once felt impossible. With that strength, you gain the clarity to move forward with purpose. You don't need the approval of the world to rise. You don't need everything to be perfect. You don't need certainty. You need a decision. A comeback is a personal declaration that your story is still unfolding, your purpose is still alive, and your capacity is far greater than your current conditions. And when you make that decision with conviction, your entire life begins to shift in your favor. Your comeback doesn't start when the conditions are ideal. Your comeback starts the moment you say, enough, it's time. So as I close, let me speak directly into your future. You are not in a setback season. You are in a comeback construction zone. Everything you've been through is shaping you into the person capable of carrying what's coming next. Don't curse the setback, thank it. Because one day you'll look back and realize it wasn't the obstacle, it was the opening. You didn't just survive it, you grew from it. You didn't just endure it, you were elevated by it. And when people ask you how you turned it all around, you'll smile and say, I changed my mindset and my mindset changed my life. This is your moment, this is your message, and this is your comeback. Go build it.